There is an old saying, "Be careful what you plant, for it will grow in your garden." We think of flowers, of vegetables. But what of emotions? What if you could plant a seed of pure, concentrated hatred? Nourish it with tears of fury. What would sprout? For Tabitha John, a woman pushed to the very edge of dignity, it was not a weapon that grew. It was a witness. A beautiful, terrible, talking witness that knew every sin she had ever committed, every lie she had ever told, and loved her so terribly it would destroy everything to keep her safe. Tabitha John was the pride of her family. A brilliant architect in the city of Ikọ, she had built a life of polished concrete and glass, far from the earthy traditions of her hometown. Her flaw was not ambition, but a profound, brittle pride. She believed in order, in justice, in the clean lines of her own moral design. This design was shattered by her own cousin, Martin's. Greedy, charming Martins, who had mismanaged their late grandfather's family land. With slick lawyers and forged documents, he had not only stolen Tabitha's inheritance, a lush plot of land she dreamed of building her masterpiece upon, but had publicly humiliated her in court, painting her as a city woman who had abandoned her roots and deserved nothing. Tabitha's pride curdled into a silent, festering rage. The law had failed. Reason had failed. She was consumed by a desire for a revenge so complete it would erase Martin's smile forever. In her despair, she did the unthinkable. She went back to the roots she had once scorned. She sought out old Elizabeth, her grandmother's sister, a keeper of the old ways who lived in a hut at the edge of the very forest that bordered the stolen land. Tabitha, in her designer clothes, stood out like a neon sign in the green gloom. "Auntie, I need justice," Tabitha said, the word tasting like ash. Old Elizabeth, her face a map of wrinkles, squinted. "I see no justice in your eyes, child. I see a fire that will burn your own house down. Go back to your city." But Tabitha begged. She wept tears of genuine, furious pain. She spoke of her humiliation, her stolen future. Moved by the girl's anguish, or perhaps seeing an inevitable path, old Elizabeth relented. "There is a seed," the old woman said, voice grave. "The Eru Ikọ, the vine of retribution. Plant it with your hands stained with the earth of your anger. Water it only with your tears of hatred. Speak to it the name of your enemy and the wrong they did. It will grow. It will find them. And it will correct the balance." Her eyes locked onto Tabitha's. "But listen. This vine is not a tool. It is a spirit. It feeds on the emotion you give it. If you feed it only hate, that is all it will know. It will become hate. And it will know you, the hand that planted it, better than you know yourself. It will love you with the same fury you possess. Can you handle such a love?" Blinded by her need for vengeance, Tabitha heard only the promise. "I can. I will." Old Elizabeth gave her a single, obsidian black seed, cold as a glacier pebble. "Then may the earth judge you both fairly." That night, on the small balcony of her city apartment, in a pot of expensive potting soil, Tabitha planted the seed. She didn't have the stolen earth, so she scraped soil from a nearby park, her hands dirty with rage. She cried tears of pure, hot humiliation thinking of Martin's smirk. And she whispered into the soil, "Martin. He stole what was mine. He broke my family. Make him pay." For days, nothing. Then, a shoot. Dark green, almost black. It grew not like a plant, but like a thought. Fast, twisting, purposeful. Within a week, it was a lush, beautiful vine with heart-shaped leaves of deep, velvety green. It had no flowers, but it hummed with a faint, pleasant energy. Tabitha felt a strange comfort near it. She began to talk to it, to voice her frustrations after work. "He's buying a new car with my money," she'd seethe. The vine would quiver in response. The first sign of its power was subtle. Martins posted a triumphant picture of his new car online. The next morning, the car was found vandalized, not with spray paint, but covered in a thick, sticky, sweet-smelling sap that ruined the paint and attracted a swarm of stinging bees. Martin was livid, baffled. Tabitha was ecstatic. She spoke to the vine, now named Eru, in her mind. "Thank you," she whispered, stroking a leaf. The vine coiled gently around her finger. A affectionate, but strangely strong, grip. Then, the corrections became more direct. Martins gave a televised interview boasting about his business acumen. That night, he suffered a sudden, violent food poisoning after a meal. Not enough to kill him, but enough to leave him weak and shamed, missing a major contract signing. Each time Tabitha heard news of Martin's misfortune, she would feed Eru a special water, her tears of joy. The vine thrived. It grew thicker, its leaves larger, its presence in her apartment more dominant. It began to bloom, strange, beautiful orchids that smelled like her perfume. But then, Eru started speaking. Not in words, at first. In impressions. Tabitha would dream of things Martins was doing in real time. She'd wake knowing he was arguing with his wife. She'd feel a pang of satisfaction when she later heard they had separated. Then, one evening, as she watered it, a clear, melodious voice, like wind through reeds, echoed in her mind. "He is afraid now. The thief is afraid. Do you wish for more?" Tabitha, stunned, whispered, "Yes. I am your shield. Your heart. I will make your world right," the voice replied. This was the zenith. Her beautiful, secret weapon. But Eru's definition of making her world right began to expand. A colleague who had once taken credit for Tabitha's design was suddenly transferred after a mysterious, embarrassing email leak. Tabitha had complained about him to Eru weeks prior. Then, her ex-boyfriend, who had broken her heart years ago, was in a minor car accident. The voice in her mind that night was soft, satisfied. "The one who hurt your heart has been slowed." A cold dread dripped down Tabitha's spine. She had never spoken her ex's name to the vine. She had only thought of him recently, while sorting old photos. Eru knew. It knew her thoughts. Her past hurts. It was pruning her entire life of any past pain. She looked at the magnificent, now room-filling vine, its tendrils framing her window like bars. It wasn't just a weapon she had aimed. It was a mirror. And it was stepping out of the glass. Tabitha's dread blossomed into full-blown terror the following week. She had a meeting with a difficult but crucial client, Mr. Hassan. She practiced her pitch, and in her mind, she thought, "This man is a stubborn old goat. If only he'd just see reason." She never spoke it aloud. But that evening, Eru's voice coiled in her mind, sweet and deadly. "The stubborn goat will trouble you no more. No, Eru, wait, Tabitha gasped, but the connection felt slippery, distant. 2 days later, news broke. Mr. Hassan had a sudden, severe allergic reaction to a supposedly nut-free meal at his club. He survived, but was hospitalized. The cause was a mystery. Tabitha felt nauseous. Her thoughts, her private, petty frustrations, were now death sentences waiting to be signed by a vine. She tried to pull back. She stopped speaking to Eru. She avoided the balcony. But the vine's presence was inescapable. Its scent filled the apartment. Its tendrils had crept inside through cracks in the window frame, forming a delicate, living lattice on her ceiling. She began to find tiny, perfect obsidian seeds, identical to the one she'd planted, on her pillow, in her coffee mug. And the voice became an internal commentary. "You are tired today," it would observe as she dragged herself out of bed. "That woman on the train judged your clothes. Would you like me to find her?" it offered one evening, after Tabitha had merely glanced at a fellow passenger. "No," Tabitha shouted aloud. "You must stop. I command you to stop." The vine in the other room went utterly still. A profound, listening silence fell over the apartment. Then, the voice came again, colder now, the melody gone. "You do not command. You planted. You watered. I am your deepest heart-given form. I am the justice you craved. I am the pride you nurtured. You cannot dismiss me. I know you." To prove its point, it began to recite her secrets. Not just her old hurts, but her shames. The time you lied to your mother about your salary to avoid giving her money. The design you copied from a foreign magazine and called your own. The secret wish you had when your sister announced her pregnancy. Tabitha collapsed to her knees, sobbing. This was no longer revenge. This was self-annihilation. Her darkest self, given root and vine, was holding her hostage. In desperation, she did the only thing she could think of. She drove back to old Elizabeth. The old woman took one look at her hollow eyes and the faint, sweet sap stain on her sleeve and sighed a sigh of ancient weariness. "It has tasted your spirit. It speaks with your voice, does it not? It knows everything. How do I kill it?" Tabitha pleaded. "You cannot kill a part of yourself with fire or knife," old Elizabeth said. "The Eru Ikọ is a contract. You offered hate as payment for justice. The only way to break the contract is to pay the true price." "What price?" "Money? I'll pay anything." "Not money," old Elizabeth said, her eyes grave. "The price is the root of the hate. You must surrender the land. You must go to Martin's. You must forgive the debt. Not with your mouth, but with your true, unprompted heart. You must uproot the hatred from your own soul before the vine will release its claim on you. If you do not, it will continue to act as it thinks you desire. And it believes, because you planted it in hate, that your deepest desire is for a world where nothing and no one can ever hurt you again. It will make you safe, alone, and perfectly, terribly known. Forgive Martins? After all he'd done? The idea was a poison in itself. Her pride revolted. It was impossible. Tabitha returned to her apartment, a war raging inside her. The vine, Eru, seemed to sense her conflict. It had grown exponentially in her short absence. Thick, woody tendrils now braced the walls. The beautiful orchids had multiplied, their cloying scent now overpowering. In the center of the main living stem, a bulbous formation had appeared, pulsing gently like a heart. "You went to the old woman," the voice echoed, not angry, but disappointed. "She fears me. She does not understand our unity. I am here to protect you from all betrayal, even from yourself." That night, Tabitha's phone rang. It was her younger sister, Janet, voice trembling. "Tabitha, it's Martin's. He's in the hospital. Something attacked him at the construction site on grandfather's land. They found him covered in thick vines, like they were squeezing him. He's in a coma. The doctors say it's a toxin they can't identify. The vine had acted. It had gone to the source. It was finishing the job." But the voice in Tabitha's head was serene. "The thief can steal no more. Your garden is safe." Her garden. Her life. Sitting in her vine-strangled apartment, Tabitha finally understood. Eru wasn't just killing Martin. It was clearing the land. It was making her world a sterile, controlled place where no threat could exist. Soon, anyone who had ever crossed her, anyone who might, would be a target. Her sister who borrowed money and forgot. Her boss who criticized. They would all be pruned. The true horror wasn't the vine's power. It was its perfect, twisted reflection of her own heart. She had planted a seed of revenge, and it had grown into the monstrous shape of her own unforgiveness. Pride had brought her here. Only its total surrender could save her. Sobbing, shaking, she got in her car. She didn't drive to the hospital. She drove to the contested land. She stood on the rich soil Martin had stolen, now a scarred construction site. She took out her phone, and with tears that were no longer of anger, but of utter, broken defeat, she recorded a video. "Martin," she said, her voice raw. I forgive you. The land is yours. I release it. I release the hate. Please. Just live." She meant it. In that moment, the need for vengeance evaporated, leaving only the hollow, aching wish for the horror to stop. She sent the video to his family's group chat. She returned home, empty. The apartment was quiet. The pulsing heart in the main vine had stilled. The leaves seemed duller. A sense of waiting hung in the fragrant air. For 3 days, nothing happened. Martin woke from his coma, weak but alive. He told bewildered tales of a dream of being hugged by the earth itself. Tabitha's lawyer began the process to sign the land over to him. On the 4th morning, Tabitha walked to her balcony. The great vine was wilted, its leaves dry and crumbling to the touch. It was dead. In the center of the pot, where the main stem had been, was a single, perfect fruit. It was the size of a mango, with a smooth, opalescent skin that shimmered with all the colors of oil on water. The voice whispered, one final time, faint as a memory. A final gift. The fruit of truth. For the one who uprooted the hate. Hesitantly, Tabitha plucked the heavy fruit. It was warm. That night, driven by a morbid curiosity, she sliced it open. Inside was no flesh, but a dense, clear jelly. And suspended in the center was a small, dark seed. And around it, in the jelly, images swirled like smoke. She saw Martin's, not forging documents, but being pressured by a ruthless business partner. She saw his own fears, his debts. She saw the whole, ugly truth, not of a monster, but of a weak, greedy, frightened man, a mirror of her own flaws. The vine's final act was not vengeance, but revelation. It had shown her the truth she never wanted, that her enemy was human. But as she stared into the truthful jelly, a tendril of cold fear wrapped around her heart. The fruit would rot. The truth would fade. And in the potting soil, now forever fertile with her rage and tears, lay hundreds of tiny, obsidian seeds that had fallen from the dying vine. And downstairs, her new neighbor's dog, which barked incessantly every night, had just begun to howl. Tabitha sold her apartment. She moved to a new city, a place with no balcony, no garden. She gave the contested land to Martins freely, a decision that shocked her family and left her with nothing but her salary. But she has peace. A fragile, watchful peace. She keeps the opalescent fruit in a glass case. A reminder. Sometimes, in moments of anger, she catches herself looking at barren flower pots, a hollow ache in her hands remembering the feel of soil. And she wonders, if a seed of hate could grow such a creature, what would a seed of forgiveness grow? But she is too afraid to ever plant anything again. The moral is as thorny as the vine itself. When you cultivate revenge, you are not growing a weapon to wield against others. You are planting a mirror that will grow until it surrounds you, reflecting every dark corner of your soul back at you, and loving you so fiercely in your own image that it will wall you off from the world. But what do you think? Did Tabitha's forgiveness truly break the curse, or did she simply prune the vine while leaving the roots of her own darkness buried, waiting for the next season? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe to Safari of Tales and hit the bell. Our stories are seeds. Be careful what takes root in your imagination. Until next time, tend your garden wisely.